Why mat chats are super important. And like any consummate professional, I write this stuff down so as I don't forget. So, number one, it's educational. Every single program for children needs to be educational, otherwise there's not really anything that separates you from anybody else out there who teaches punches and kicks and all that jazz. So that's why we always have an educational slant to everything we do, be it a game that we're playing or a mat chat. It's educational. Today was about courtesy. Wonderful stuff. The next thing is it gives every child a voice. Massive when it comes to building confidence, especially at a young age. Children typically, not always, typically they're being told, be quiet, calm down, shut up, whatever. Depends on how polite the adult is. At school, it's the same thing. All right, kids, calm down. Yeah, you need to listen to the teacher. So they're constantly being told that their voice needs to be quietened. Whereas in a mat chat, it gives them an opportunity to talk in a safe and calm environment, so they are more likely to talk, which builds their confidence because they start to understand, even from the age of 4, I have a voice and it's going to be listened to. That's incredibly powerful, even for a little child. So yes, it gives every child a voice. It calms, this is my favorite, calms the student before the physical portion of the class. The mat chat is still part of the class. Don't think of it as anything that's a little bit extra or not worth doing. And it's a big part of the class. Parents might be coming along expecting, punching, kicking, martial arts, that cool thing. It's like, yes, they're going to get that, but they also get this as well. And you need to, when communicating with parents, talk about it as though it is part of the class. Otherwise, they see it as a little bit frilly, a bit whimsical. And it's like, well, when are we going to actually get on with the proper stuff? It's like, this is the proper stuff because this leads into that. Now, one of the reasons it's important to calm a child down before class is because we don't know what environment they've just come from. They may have had a heck of a day at preschool, school, wherever it is they are, and then they've had maybe a little bit of time at home, depending on when you start your classes. And so then they could have had a nap on the way to class. That happens quite frequently with little kids. With the older children, they may have had a very stressful day. I've got a lot of teenagers obviously going through GCSEs and all that kind of thing. They need to decompress. The mat chat, or the beginning of your class, be it the little ones or the older ones, is their time to decompress. It allows them to forget their day, calm down before they enter the physical portion. Otherwise, they're going from potentially one manic environment straight into another physical manic environment, and that's just not going to gel well with their mental capacity to learn. So it allows them to decompress. It's one of my favorite reasons for a mat chat. It engages the learning center of the brain. This ties into calming down. So we want children, and adults to be perfectly frank, to remember as much of our class as they physically can or mentally can. In terms of opening up their learning capacity, they need to be calm to do so, but they also need to engage their brain before they start learning the physical. So because we've got them thinking about things, so we're asking them questions, they're having a conversation, their brain is already starting to open to learning again. Because they may have been at school and they might be exhausted from learning. And so we need to re-engage that. Whereas if you jump straight into a physical portion of the class, the likelihood is the first 10, 15 minutes will completely leave them. And when we started doing this, we noticed that our children were remembering much more of the physical portion because we took the time to engage the learning center of the brain before we started doing the bigger part, the physical part, which has actually prompted us to make our curriculum harder because the little tykes were picking it up really, really quickly. And the last grading, it was like, that was really easy. It's like, I need to make everything a bit more difficult. So we've added a few more techniques and we've put a few more challenges in there. But this is because they calm down and they're remembering much, much more. And they're engaging with the programs. It's massively important. So this is the bit where we edit. Because I've got all my information on here, I have to type the code in every time the screen goes off. Fun and engaging. Everything we should do is fun and engaging because they're ages 4 to 12 or beyond, depending on how many or how old the children are that you teach. If it's not fun, if it's not engaging, if it's not colourful, then they're just going to get bored. They're going to sit there and they're going to be like, can I go home? When's the lesson over? It's like, we're 5 minutes in, dude. It's like, calm down. We'll get there. So everything has to be fun and engaging. Some people, until you get used to the mat chat, you're going to be quite quiet with it. And that's okay. You do you. You don't want to try and be false in the way that you give anything. I have a lot of enthusiasm with what I project. That is not by accident. That's through training. I used to be very, very quiet and very timid, but over time, I'm much more, out there. I'm not tired and timid anymore. It just doesn't. Could you imagine that? I'm tired and timid. But if you are, nicely spoken, softly spoken, be softly spoken. Just do you, because the only way that you can engage and the way that you can be excited about something is if you're not false about it. Okay, so don't try and force anything. I've got students, junior instructors, who do very, very good mat chats, but they are nowhere near as loud or animated as what I am. I talk with my hands and I'm all over the place. That's just who I am now. They're not, but their mat chats are still excellent because they're following the structure, but they're still engaging all of the children. So you do you. Okay, gets everyone to become more familiar with each other, especially newbies. So if you've got a new student who comes along and the first thing they see is all these kids running and punching and having a great time, it will go one of two ways. If they're relatively high in confidence, they might just jump in and get on with it. That's fabulous. If they're relatively low in confidence, it will put them off your class immediately because it's loud, there's lots going on, it's way too much for them to absorb. Okay, they will not be able to mentally comprehend what's going on in the class. It's too much stimulus. And a child who has too much stimulus tends to shut down if they're not used to it. So the best thing that you can do when they walk in, and this is one of the reasons we start 2 minutes early, is like, oh, it's nice and calm in here. Everybody sat down talking to the instructor or the instructor's assistant or whoever's taking the mat chat, which also gives you the time to say, welcome, Mum and Dad. Look at this. It's wonderful, isn't it? You wouldn't necessarily say it's wonderful, isn't it? They get to make that decision themselves, quite frankly. It's like, actually, no, I think sat down is no good at all. But they come into a controlled and calm environment, and the child is far, far less put off, especially if they have low confidence, because it's calm. And then we slowly get them into the lineup, which is why we get them to line up in belt order. Highest ranks first. You don't want the newbie going to sit down on their own in number 10. They've got no idea what's going on. Even with an assistant, they're like, oh my God, I'm on the spot. But if you do highest ranks first, then the line is there, and then the newbie knows what to do. Because children at that age, they don't learn through being told, do they? As we covered before, they learn by watching and doing. And so they just follow what the rest of the class is doing. And we had this yesterday. We had a new kid, very shy, but he went straight into line because the highest ranks went first and everything was calm to begin with. First steps to building confidence, we kind of covered that. But again, they know that they can talk in a safe environment by putting their hands up. Now, the final one is it allows you to reinforce the rules of the class before the physical part begins. We don't want children shouting out. They're going to. It's part and parcel of being a child. They're excited. But in a safe and calm environment, you are able to reinforce the rules of the class. So for instance, I get it all the time. A child will be so excited because they've got the correct answer to the question that they blurt it out. I will ignore them and go, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Totally blurting it out all the time.
Okay, I'm a child.
But what we do is I ignore them. And anybody who's got their hand up, I go straight to them. And then 9 times out of 10, the person who was calling out shuts up, puts their hand up, because they want to be spoken. But they know that Mr. Harfield, or whoever it is that's teaching, is not going to listen unless they're obeying the rules. I have not told that child to be quiet. I've not told them to shut up. I've not shut them down. I've ignored their behavior and I've reinforced the good behavior. Shutting down a child can have the complete opposite effect. They may never talk to you again because like, oh, if I do anything, I'm going to get shouted at by Mr. H. That's why we don't shout in my classes. I think I've shouted 3 times in 10 years and it's always been for safety. It's never been for anything else. So just ignore the poor behavior, reinforce the good behavior, and then before you get into the physical portion, they already know the rules. They want to say something, they put their hand up. It works beautifully, and it's not by accident. So, 2 minutes before the class, these are a few extra little notes before you're going to do your own mat chat, and then I'm going to show you the rest of the system. So, one of the reasons we do 2 minutes before the class, as I mentioned, is it brings, I'll come to you in a moment, very good hand. It brings, and that's what I'll do with a kid. If I'm in the middle of something, if I'm in the middle of flow, I'll be like, I'll acknowledge they got their hand up, and I'll come to you. I'm just going to finish what I'm saying. And I forgot what I'm saying, so let's come to you. I was basically just reinforcing the point that one of the reasons it's 2 minutes early is so that when new people come in or when people come in, they see it's a calm environment.
You said there was 10 reasons of importance. I only have 8.
I'm going on to more now.
Oh.
That's all right. There's actually more than 10, but don't worry about that.
Okay.
It's me trying to be clever. I've got like 17 here. I'm not going to go through all of them because some of them slightly repeat. Now, next piece. Yeah, 2 minutes before. Who has ever walked into a room and they're late? Yeah. I've walked into a room and they're late, and when they go, everybody looks at you. Anybody done that before? Yeah, loads of time. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. What we don't want our students doing is arriving on time. We want them to arrive early. Because with children, if they arrive on time, they're going to be late to your class because they've got to get their uniform on, they've got to get their belt on, they've got to get their shoes and socks off, they've got to put, I don't know, their cuddly toy on the side somewhere. You know, they bring toys and stuff all the time. So we want them to arrive early, which is one of the reasons the Mat Chat starts 2 minutes early. So if anybody comes in on time, they get that late feeling. It's like, oh, are we late? It's like, no, you're okay. Get ready, come and sit down. The second reason, of course, is that if they do come in, once the Mat Chat has begun, they come in quietly because they can see that something is happening in the room. And eventually, your parents and your students, without having to shout at them every time, come in early, which is great. It's like, oh, hi, Mr. H, we're 20 minutes early because we didn't want to walk in when anything had begun. It's like, fantastic. Can you take all that stuff there? Because I've got a lot of stuff to get up there. It's fine. It's just a really cheeky way of me getting people to bring stuff into class. Because there's a lot to set up. But they get that kind of feeling. The parents do. The kids don't. The parents do, and the parents don't like it, which is great because I don't have to shout. And if I don't have to shout, I've done my job. Okay. Now, for those, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to put more in band, and I'll send it through so that you've got like a record of this. But those are the really big, important ones. Now, we're going to have a go at doing your own Mat Chat.